Pay close attention. The news you're about to see is fulfilling Bible prophecy.
Welcome to another edition of YPN News, bringing you news as it relates to Bible prophecy and foretold by Israel Hawkins. We're going to talk about the increase of cancer rates among young people, particularly 50 years of age and under. Some extreme heat that we're seeing both in the United States and in the Middle East, and a recent meeting between Presidents Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump in Alaska. But first, a report published in the New England Journal of Medicine has acknowledged a cause of skin cancer, and that is HPV. The study shows that the virus can cause cancerous lesions on the skin to form. Now, the previous belief was that UV damaged the cells, which are ultraviolet lights. Those damaged cells are the things that turned cancerous. But the HPV-caused cancer was discovered in a woman with a weakened immune system.
Well, cancer is affecting more people, particularly younger people. Colorectal cancer is affecting and killing people younger than 50, a recent study shows. Now, doctors aren't quite sure why there is an increase per se in the onset of cancer in younger people, but they have some input as to what might be driving the surge.
David Thau, a cancer awareness advocate, discovered he had stage 3 colorectal cancer at only age 34. He said in an interview with ABC News Live, quote, "I was always one of those people who I thought, hey, I'm young, I'm healthy. But my reaction, that is to the diagnosis, was shock." Well, colorectal cancer is the 4th most diagnosed cancer in the United States for both men and women, and has seen a rise in early onset cases from 2000 to 2019.
Well, Dr. Kimmy Ng said that colorectal cancer is more likely to be diagnosed at more advanced stages when it is less likely to be cured. And the scariest thing about this is that we actually don't know what's driving the uptick. Now, it's not just colorectal cancers. All cancers are on the rise for people under 50, with breast cancer up 13% and stomach cancer up 27% during the same 2000 to 2019 reporting period. Now, one study found that 8 out of 14 cancers under review were tied to the digestive system.
That's right. One study found that those particular cancers related to the digestive system suggested that diet and lifestyle might be playing a part in young people's diagnoses.
Always important to watch what we're eating.
That's right.
Well, a flesh-eating bacteria is plaguing the coastal waters of America. Now, one fisherman, George Belleris, a third-generation sponge fisherman, told of his account of contracting the deadly bacteria Vibrio vulnificus lurking in warm coastal waters that nearly killed him when he waded into knee-deep water while having a small cut on his back leg. Now, the bacteria got into his body and caused inflammation and flu-like symptoms. Now, at one point, doctors thought they were actually going to have to amputate his leg just from a small cut there.
That's right.
And this bacteria entering in.
Yeah, crazy. After 3 weeks of treatment, the infection subsided, and doctors have actually said that 1 in 5 people who contract the bacteria actually die from it. One thing that can increase the risk of contracting the bacteria, they say, hurricanes. I guess it must stir up that bacteria from the sediment and so forth and bring it to the surface of the water.
And he was very blessed. I mean, the infection subsided, but others are not that blessed when it comes to getting that bacteria.
That's right.
Well, cell phones, a tool used in everyday activities in the 21st century. But how dangerous to the mind are these devices when self-control isn't practiced and the tool becomes an addiction? Well, take a look at this next video for more on the dangers of cell phones and social media. Take a look.
Be honest. Did you just check your phone? Yeah, same. Good news is, you're not alone. We all do it. The reach, the scroll, that weird little heart flutter when it's not there. You didn't decide to check, it just happened. Like breathing, but more tragic. Distraction gone full autopilot. Not because we're bored, not because it's urgent, but because, well, what else are we supposed to do? Sit with our thoughts?
Everything is locked into a ceaseless and desperate race for attention online. Attention is the most important currency.
If the Wi-Fi's on, so are we.
The online world provides us with an opportunity for constant stimulation. There is no need now for people to be sitting, doing nothing, thinking, or just reflecting. There is no need now for people to be sitting, doing nothing, thinking, or just reflecting.
Sitting and thinking? Sounds gross. We say we're more connected than ever, but once upon a time, connection didn't involve 3 Wi-Fi bars and a blue check.
What these platforms sometimes do is give us the illusion of intimacy.
Because due to the internet, people are contacting each other in person less.
Now a screen lighting up feels more intimate than eye contact.
We're living through one of the loneliest ages probably in human existence.
Alone, we scroll to feel less alone. And somehow it kind of works. Until it doesn't. Because what if the thing we reach for to feel connected is the same thing pulling us farther apart? And what exactly are we connecting to? Each other or the feed?
Humans can form relationships with pretty well anything, with stones, with inanimate objects, with their car or whatever. So, we are capable of imbuing things, even technologies, with human qualities. But it can only take you so far, I think.
Connection, real connection, is supposed to mean presence. 2 brains, same moment, actual awareness. A bond born from just existing near each other. Revolutionary, we know. This isn't just a nice to have, it's hardwired into our biology. But most of us, we're not exactly nailing it. We check our phones an average of 144 times a day. We touch them more than 2,600 times daily, not because something happened, but because something might have. In one survey report in August 2023, 56.9% of American adults self-reported phone dependency, with 47% feeling anxiety when battery dips low. Our deepest fear? Not death, not failure, it's being left out of the group chat. Before the pandemic, the U.S. Surgeon General called loneliness a public health crisis.
Loneliness and social isolation are widespread problems in the U.S. The Surgeon General says it has reached epidemic proportions.
You struggle with loneliness when you're socially disconnected. It increases your risk of depression and anxiety and suicide, but it also increases your risk of physical illness as well.
So you're saying loneliness is comparable to smoking in terms of the detriment to your health?
Yeah, in terms of the risk that it poses for premature death, yes.
Not just a feeling, a condition, a threat, on par with smoking 15 cigarettes a day, worse than obesity, tied to higher risks of heart disease, dementia, stroke, depression, and early death. And then the world shut down. By 2023, 58% of Americans said they felt lonely often or always. Among teens, that number climbs above 70%. Social platforms aren't passive tools. They're emotional architectures, interactive systems built to poke your brain, hijack your attention, and keep you scrolling like it's a full-time job. They don't wait for you to use them, they make sure you do.
The way that the social media platforms work is that you cannot be guaranteed to get a good hit a positive response every time you post something. And that is part of the process, because when it comes to these sort of compulsive behaviors, it's that little bit of uncertainty that it creates this sort of anticipation.
Every scroll, like, or ping, that's your brain's dopamine circuit lighting up like a slot machine. Not because it's fun, but because it's unpredictable. You're not addicted to the payoff, you're addicted to the maybe. Maybe it's a like. Maybe it's a comment. Maybe it's your ex liking your story at 2 a.m. And your brain, it eats maybe for breakfast.
When you refresh your email, you know, almost always you get nothing, right? But every so often, you'll get something which might be life-changing. Every so often, you might have a job, you might have a job request in there, or job offer, or maybe you've won something, truly, or maybe your old romantic interest is getting back in touch.
Studies confirm it. Dopamine spikes aren't strongest when the reward arrives, but when it's anticipated. Social apps know the game. That's why likes, alerts, and DMs show up at random, just enough to keep you chasing the next hit. Because if you knew when it was coming, you'd stop checking, and that's bad for business.
Yeah, that's something that, a lot of people that have come up in this generation, they don't realize how dependent we were on simple things like writing things down, communicating and interacting with people, just being more social. People are more locked into being social on devices, but as we heard in this report, it's actually making people less social, more distant, and increasing things like anxiety and depression.
Right, and you know that you're hooked to your phone if you experience anxiety when your low battery comes on.
Oh, yeah, that's crazy. Well, along with that last report, a new study highlights the effects on the health of children ages 6 through 18 who engage in high levels of screen time. That study suggests that excessive screen time may increase the risk of obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes.
Well, this next video might be disturbing to some of our viewers. The condition of prisons have been an issue for years, but many of the abuses have gone unreported. Take a look.
Pull your hands in that cell. Officer Grant, strike him at the time.
This video, obtained by NBC News, has never been seen by the public. It's from 2013, recorded in a New York State prison. What it reveals is a system that has been in crisis for years.
Strike him with that baton.
The man behind that steel door, Timothy Dixon.
Why didn't you just put your hands back in the cell when they told you to?
That was my way of protesting.
At the time, Dixon says he was locked in solitary confinement with another man.
There's another person in there
and
with
he's in
you.
solitary too. That's called the double bump.
23 hours a day.
23 hours. I say, yo, no, I don't belong with nobody in here, right?
According to official records, Dixon says he told officers that he was having problems with his cellmate, but they ignored him. So he protested by dangling his arms through a slot meant to pass him food.
Strike him with that baton.
An official incident report says Dixon was struck 10 times. 5 hits to the right wrist, 4 to the left, and once on the right elbow. The use of force, it says, was authorized and videotaped by a corrections officer.
It's really, really tough to watch.
Yes, but that's the reality. Some of the things that happened, and that I think that they could have handled that different, but they went to the extreme.
Dixon was released last year after serving more than 30 years for murder.
Wow, and that video from 2013 is just probably a snapshot into many of the abuses that actually go unreported every single day in prisons.
Right, and the prison guards there, Katan, what's interesting is they thought that was actually an appropriate way to handle the situation, recording it, because they felt that they were justified to use force in that situation. So, their ability to solve problems, definitely lacking.
Yeah, it seems like that type of activity would add to the tension and the conflicts within the prison itself.
Right, absolutely. Well, Tehran is running out of fresh water. Why? Well, the worst drought in 60 years. Now, take a look at what leaders in the area are concerned for.
Iran's president just admitted Tehran is in big trouble as the city has no fresh water. Masoud Pezeshkian warned that without immediate help, the capital's dams will be empty by September. This comes as Iran faces its worst drought in 60 years, with rainfall down 45%. The crisis exposes decades of regime mismanagement that turned a natural drought into a national catastrophe. President Pezeshkian told state media the situation is serious and authorities are working round the clock to transfer water from other dams. But he admitted these emergency measures may not be enough. Tehran's dam reserves sit at just 42% of capacity nationwide. Only 23.56 billion cubic meters entered dams this water year, down 42% from last year. The numbers reveal how bad things really are. Iran closed government offices across 16 provinces to conserve power during a 50-degree Celsius heat wave. Rolling blackouts disrupted water pumping stations, making the shortage even worse. Tehran Water Company CEO Mohammad Taqi Hossein-Zardan confirmed the capital's reserves would last until late September at current consumption rates. He urged citizens to cut water use by at least 20% or face systematic cuts.
Wow, well, that's like adding insult to injury, considering what they're already dealing with the nuclear enrichment situation. United States coming against them, Israel coming against them. Now they're having to deal with something that's very essential that has nothing to do with uranium, and that's water, something that's absolutely vital for life.
Right, and we've talked about drought a lot, and now Tehran is experiencing it. We've talked about drought in many different parts of the world, but the rainfall down only 45%. But that dam, that specific one that they were mentioning, is going to be out of water come September of this year. So a very tough situation. They're scrambling to try to find a way to continue supplying their people with water.
Yeah, and if it continues in that route, it's going to definitely lead to another humanitarian situation, because people can survive without food for a little bit, but water, they got to have that for sure.
Well, thousands in western states have no choice but to evacuate their homes this week due to wildfires. Now, over 50 million more residents are on alert as temperatures near 100 degrees and soaring past that in some places continue to stretch across the country. Now, just north of Los Angeles is the Canyon Fire. It has already burned 8 square miles, including some structures, but more are still in harm's way.
That's right. To get a perspective on how fast the fire is moving, every 2 seconds, it actually burns a football field-sized piece of land. Smoke from the fire is reaching hundreds of miles away to Las Vegas, where the sunrise is not only hazy, but smoke can clearly be seen on the horizon. Firefighters were doing their best to work through the night when the temperatures are cooler to create fire breaks with bulldozers and even by hand, just using manpower with shovels and chainsaws. But by the morning, they still had not contained the Canyon Fire.
But the Canyon Fire is only one of several fires burning this summer. Now, the Gifford Fire is now the largest fire in California for the year. It has burned more than 150 square miles of the state. Now, in Colorado, the Lee Fire and the Elk Fire have scorched more than 1,700 square miles together. Now, one resident who was affected, a cattleman for over 50 years, told ABC News, quote, "It's devastating. The country we grew up in is gone."
Then the Lee Fire, of course, ignited overnight, grew to 70 square miles by the morning, and now threatens the town of Meeker, which is situated in the White River Valley in northwestern Colorado. It is mostly a ranching community, but also the summer home and permanent home to some prominent Americans, including billionaire Michael Bloomberg.
So those drier temperatures, hot, drier temperatures, certainly adding to the conditions that are just perfectly ripe for wildfires. Now, San Diego and the surrounding region experiencing a steamy back-to-school welcome. There are contingency plans in place for the high heat, which is to keep students indoors for lunch as well as recess. Now, Phoenix, Arizona is known for its hot, dry weather, but at 118 degrees Fahrenheit, shattering a daily record for the second day in a row. It's unheard of.
That's hot. At Palm Springs International Airport, only the planes that can stand the heat are able to take off there. With air temperatures of 117 degrees, the asphalt is 163 degrees, which is just hotter than some planes can handle.
Well, the scorching heat is not only limited to the U.S. Iraq and Turkey are no strangers to extreme temperatures either. But it was so hot, Iraq's government had to declare an emergency holiday so everyone could cope with the record-breaking heat. Now, Turkey, too, is finding it a bit unbearable. Take a look at this report from YPN News.
Scorching heat is now becoming unbearable in both Iraq and Turkey. Power outages, wildfires, and people scrambling for help and relief. Degrees are rising above 50 degrees Celsius. We tell you more.
A brutal heat wave is scorching parts of West Asia, pushing temperatures to dangerous new extremes. In Iraq, thermometers hit a staggering 52 degrees Celsius this week, forcing the government to declare a public holiday in multiple provinces. In the capital, Baghdad, desperate residents plunged into the Tigris River. Others huddled around misting fans or clutched melting ice blocks, all in a bid to escape the unforgiving heat. But relief is hard to come by. Power outages have left many without electricity, no fans, no air conditioning, just dry air and burning streets.
There is a rise in the temperature. It's currently over than 50 degrees. It's hitting 52 degrees during this recent period. What can one do? You head back home, there's no electricity, and it's so hot. It feels like you're burning.
Across the border in Turkey, the country just recorded its highest ever temperature, 50.5 degrees Celsius, in the southeastern province of Sirnak, near the Iraqi border. In Adana, a city already known for its scorching summers, locals say it's become suffocating. Some residents are packing up to escape the heat, others staying put and enduring it. Wildfires have broken out across Turkey's south, forcing thousands to evacuate and claiming the lives of at least 10 firefighters. The government is on high alert. Hot and dry summers are common in the Mediterranean region, but more intense heat waves have contributed to destructive wildfires in recent years amid fast rising temperatures across the globe.
The weather forecast says it's 40 degrees, but it feels like we're living in the 80 degrees. That's how hot it is. It's unbearable. We go home, turn on the air conditioner, and it makes you sick.
Well, you know it's hot when in Iraq they have to give people a holiday because generally speaking it stays fairly warm over there.
Right. 125 degrees Fahrenheit are hot temperatures for anybody.
Uncomfortable. Well, President Putin requested a meeting with President Donald Trump after a recent visit with U.S. Special Envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff. The two prominent world leaders came together in Anchorage, Alaska at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson on August 15th. Let's take a listen as to what they had to say about how the meeting they called Pursuing Peace went.
I will say that I believe we had a very productive meeting. There were many, many points that we agreed on, most of them, I would say, a couple of big ones that we haven't quite gotten there, but we've made some headway. So there's no deal until there's a deal. I will call up NATO in a little while. I will call up the various people that I think are appropriate, and I'll, of course, call up President Zelensky and tell him about today's meeting. It's ultimately up to them. They're going to have to agree with what Marco and Steve and some of the great people from the Trump administration who've come here. Look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. So just to put it very quickly. I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, whose faces, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do.
We have the same roots, and everything that's happening is a tragedy for us and terrible wound. Therefore, the country is sincerely interested in putting an end to it. At the same time, we're convinced that in order to make the settlement lasting and long-term, we need to eliminate all the primary roots, the primary causes of that conflict. And we've said it multiple times, to consider all legitimate concerns of Russia and to reinstate a just balance of security in Europe and in the world on the whole. And I agree with President Trump, as he has said today, that naturally the security of Ukraine should be ensured as well. Naturally, we are prepared to work on that. I would like to hope that the agreement that we've reached together will help us bring closer that goal and will pave the path towards peace in Ukraine. We expect that Kiev and European capitals will perceive that constructively and that they won't throw a wrench in the works. They will not make any attempts to use some backroom dealings to conduct provocations to torpedo the nascent progress. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war, and I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, businesslike, and trustworthy contact. And I have every reason to believe that moving down this path, we can come, and the sooner the better, to the end of the conflict in Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, the two leaders sounded actually very hopeful there, Katan, that they were going to come to an agreement. President of the United States, Donald Trump, saying that they have found common ground on several of the issues. Still a couple more, he said. You know, he was being real. Still a couple more that they needed to work on. But also President Putin was, was pretty hopeful as well. So we'll see actually where that goes. That's right. Well, our final clip for you here this evening is on the Abraham Accords. Now, it's a little throwback video. And if you remember, Katan, the Abraham Accords, they were mediated by the United States President, Donald Trump, in 2020. And it was kind of a normalization agreement between Israel and some of the Arab states. So, he mentioned something there about having a common ancestry, Abraham. So let's take a look at a clip from this video.
Ultimately, Jews and Arabs are the descendants of one common ancestor, Avraham, Abraham, Ibrahim. And it is in his name that we have designated this historic peace initiative. In his spirit, we wish to foster a Middle East of coexistence and cooperation, of mutual understanding and mutual respect.
Well, it's interesting how, Benjamin Netanyahu kind of acknowledges that, we're all kind of brothers under Abraham. Interestingly enough, Overseer of the House of Yahweh, Yisrael Hawkins, had something to say about the descendants of Abraham as well. Let's take a look at this clip.
But Exodus 12, this is coming out from that group that Yahweh showed you in Genesis 49. He actually showed you this that took place in Exodus. He showed you this and named all 12 of these tribes there and said, this is what they're going to be in the last days. No, they didn't disappear. They didn't get killed. In fact, they told Yeshua, we're the seed of Abraham. We've never been in bondage. Did you get what they said there? They were the bonders. They'd never been in bondage. They're the ones that was in control. They're the ones that had the great army that killed and murdered all of their enemies. They're the ones that gave the orders. They were never under arrest. They are the ones that had the police that arrested you when you kept Yahweh's Sabbath correctly. Yes, if you kept Yahweh's Sabbath correctly, you would be doing it the way Yeshua did, serving people.
Katan, just going back, very interesting comments there, teachings rather, from Yeshua Hawkins. But interestingly, Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't usually like to make the connection between Israel and the Arab states as being so closely tied together as brothers like that. But of course, they had an agreement, or were working towards agreements at that time. So interesting. But with the as Yeshua Hawkins mentioned there, coming from seeds of Abraham, descendants of Abraham, all being together, these groups split off, but still in existence today.
That's right. And they're having problems right now because they're not really following the example that Abraham set, and so they're not actually pursuing peace, and as a result, there's so much conflict taking place, particularly in that region, which was one of the need for the Abraham Accords.
Right. And if you'd like to hear the rest of that sermon, you can contact the House of Yahweh, and they'll tell you how you can listen to the rest of that sermon. But if you'd like to contact the House of Yahweh, please do so by writing them at the House of Yahweh, P.O. Box 2498, Abilene, Texas, 79604. Call them at 1-800-613-9494. Visit them by going to any of their websites. You can go to yahweh.com, yeshuahawkins.com, or yahwehsbranch.com. You can also visit our website by going to YPNnews.com. If you'd like to email the House of Yahweh, you can do so by emailing info@yahweh.com. And any international calls, you can call the number that's on your screen now. And don't forget, please go to the YisraelSays.com program, or please go to the Yisrael Says program by going to YisraelSays.com, or you can go to Ask Yisrael program by going to AskYisrael.com. And as we mentioned with that sermon, Katan, you can do a keyword search like that and find a lot more on the descendants or seeds of Abraham, and as Yeshua Hawkins was talking about, how that lineage came down to what we have today.
That's right. Well, don't go anywhere, because up next is another classic sermon by Yeshua Hawkins. From all of us here at YPN News, I'm Katan Alexander.
And I'm Jeffrey Heimerman.
Thank you for watching.